Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to return to a topic that I've spoken about in the past, which is the issue of rape and how it's handled through the legal system, through the courts and so on. Now, rape is seen by the woke sort of activist mob, and this is pushed heavily by the globalists and the NGOs they fund. It's seen as the absolute front line in gender conflict, male-female conflict. This is the fucking front line. This is where evil oppression by those straight white males, because even according to the activists, the feminist activists, even the act of consensual penetration, penile penetration, that in itself is oppression, and is evil and oppressing women and the oppressor male. So the battle lines are clearly divided: straight white male, evil; any female, be she straight white or anything else, oppressed, victim, put upon, must be protected by the state and all the resources of the state, protected against these evil fascist Nazis. So that's really the thinking sort of behind it. Now, what got me onto this today was I saw an article by a journalist and talking about, this is a journalist I've noticed before. He's actually a homosexual activist, and he's a sort of right on the front line of the activism, which he doesn't mention. He passes himself off as an independent journalist, but he's nothing of the sort. He's a strident activist in the area of oppressed women and all this sort of stuff. He sees himself, the gay guy sees himself, or at least pretends to be, some big hairy-chested hero protector of downtrodden women. I don't know how he works that out, but anyway, that's his job, is as an activist, and like so many activists today, they're given a job as a journalist so they can apply their hatred of white people through the media. Now he's always banging on about how rapists get away with it and get in his view sentences that aren't long enough and so on. He only seems to cover rapes when it's a white male who's involved. The rapes with the gangs of brown and black people, this journalist doesn't seem to show any interest in. So clearly it's he's engaging in a propaganda game. Another thing that came up recently was this was in the last few days, I think, was they're looking at a substantial review of the legal system in Scotland and how rapes are to be handled or dealt with through the legal system. And some of the proposals that are allegedly going around the Parliament at the moment sort of reflect the ideological thinking behind it. So the concerns are the clamouring for something to be done. The concerns are that not enough men are being convicted of rape. And more men should be convicted, and the law, exists as it exists, and the court proceedings as they exist protect evil rapists from accountability. So the activists claim. Now, it's because they're such strident activists, you have to take all this with a pinch of salt. But they've clearly got into the bowels of various parliaments around the world, all across the Western world, and Scotland being an example. But the claim is, again, the concern is, well, look, we're bringing all these cases to court, and the accused is getting off, so there must be something wrong. Well, hold on a minute. Maybe the accused is innocent. Have you thought of that? No. They're straight white fucking males. They've been accused by a woman. Women never lie. They're fucking guilty. And until we get guilty verdicts, 100% of the time, the justice system isn't working. Whoa. Is that where we're at? Now, that should scare the pants off anybody. No pun intended. That should scare anybody. if that sort of attitude is going through the legislature or indeed the courts or anyone, the Department of Prosecutions and so on. I suppose we can have faint hope here. What it means is that everywhere else in the system is infected with, this wokeism and gender conflict and that sort of thing, but the courts haven't been fully infected with it yet. But the proposals for the Scottish Parliament, as a case in point, and this is not unique, you see it elsewhere around the West, is there must be special rape courts. Now the courts are going to be, the courts that they want the courts to be given names like rape, the court of rape prosecution or something. So the prejudicial nature of the structure of the court sticks out quite a long way. And the attitude is, well, look, any woman that accuses a man of doing it, particularly if it's a white man, then he's guilty. Now, if he's not guilty that he did the rape, he's guilty ideologically. And so we don't really need to care about details, facts, evidence, and so on. Let's just pull the guy and just process him and put him in the fucking prison. Justice done. Now that again is scary to anybody, but because they're bringing down the hated oppressor, in ideological terms, then kind of that's okay. We're allowed to do that. These guys are Nazis anyway, so why should they have legal rights? And I don't see a whole lot of pushback against this, really. So I'm assuming that this specialist court with the reversed burden of proof, where he has to prove he didn't do it, and so on. I think that'll be will come in, if not tomorrow, the next day, certainly later, because there just aren't the people pushing back against it. Why there isn't the people, why sensible people are nowhere to be found in the middle of this is hard to believe. But now my view is, if rape did occur and the evidence is there, then fine. Then somebody should be subject to the penalties under the law, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But this maniacal, desperate, seething, panting desire to get convictions, that is dangerous no matter what or where you see it, and must be fought back against, again, wherever you see it or hear about it. Now, just looking at I've mentioned this before, but there's I know some judges and that sort of thing. So, and I was talking to one judge. We were having, I think it was a lunch, and we were talking about the cases that the judge has been a judge for a while. So they turned the cases that were around when he first became a judge, and he was saying it was all murder and armed robbery and those sorts of things, and rape was something that was very rare. Today, to give you an idea of just how much things have changed, today he says that the majority of all the cases he hears are rape cases. Now, that's an astonishing change. So we've gone from 5% or something of less than 5% of cases being rape now to like 60% of all cases. This Superior Court judge hears a rape. I mean, fuck, is that even possible? But what it illustrates is the degree of activism that now infects the legal system, the Department of Prosecutions, the district attorneys, that sort of thing. So now there's a difference. There's a stark, typically, I mean, you get laws, get outliers here, but typically the brown and black rape situation is very clear. There's often gangs or groups. One's on lookout, another holds the woman down, the other does the raping, that sort of thing. So they're quite easy. Convictions are very easy to achieve here, because the evidence is overwhelming, and these tend not to go to court very often. They do get to court sometimes, but they mostly end in plea bargains where the prosecution says, "Look, we've got you dead to rights here. You're going to prison for 20 years, buddy." Or maybe more than one. But if you'll, rather than go to court and waste everyone's time, we'll give you 8 years of a sentence, and you'll be out in 5 years. So what do you reckon, Abdul? And you go, "Oh, hey, that's all right with me." So so most of them end up in plea deals. The white cases, where there's a white male, by contrast, there hasn't been use of any violence, threat of violence. There's no guns, there's no knives, there's nothing like that. There's a very technical argument over, did she give consent? Was the consent at any time withdrawn, even the nanosecond before ejaculation? Did she have 2 drinks, or like drinks of wine or something like that? Did she have 2 drinks or 2.5 drinks? Because if it's 2.5 drinks, then she couldn't legally give consent. Therefore, it's rape. And so very technical arguments over those sorts of things. So it's not really rape at all. We're talking about sort of not fully consented sex, maybe is more the point. And for some reason, white women, or any women, but women are encouraged, very much encouraged by the activist class, to go to the Department of Prosecutions or through the police and so on, through the special groups and activist groups and We Believe All Women and these sorts of things. They're encouraged to go through that. And it's a very low bar of evidence. He raped me. He did. I signed this form. Done. Next. And it's like a production line where she just moves along to the next one, then the next one, and before you know it, the matter's going to court. And the Department of Prosecutions, district attorneys are under a lot of ideological, political ideological pressure to bring more cases to court. So why are there so few convictions of straight white males? Or if they are convicted, they get a what's viewed by the feminist activist groups anyway as a sentence that's way too lenient. So why is that? Well, what's happening is that cases that have almost no merit at all and are based purely on the very tight technical argument of consent, was consent given? Because remember, no violence, no threats of violence, no guns, no knives, nothing. It's purely on the basis of, did she give full and fully informed consent? And was that consent valid under law? So again, very technical arguments here. There was no violence or no rape or anything like that. And the attitude, often these women, once they're encouraged to go forward with this, they fall under the sway of radical feminist activists everywhere that are encouraging to do this, say that, sign here. And so some of these young women, they sort of brought along, suddenly they're getting all this attention. Oh, you poor little thing, you're a victim. Was he bad to you? Was he bad to you? We'll put him in prison. Did he say a mean word to you? We'll put him in prison. And these young girls go, oh, wow, I've never had so much attention in my life. I feel so validated. So these very technical arguments get to court, and under the standard or under the legal standards, particularly if it's a jury, because if the chance the guy is going to be sent to prison, there's a jury, and juries don't often convict when the argument is this technical. Was there violence? Was there threat of violence? Was there a weapon? These sorts of things, and jury isn't impressed by, I might have had, a quarter of a drink too many, so I couldn't really give informed consent. And then I decided a week later that maybe I had been raped, but I wasn't sure. And, that doesn't wash with a jury, or certainly very few juries. And so, but this enrages the feminists. But it doesn't fucking matter whether he did anything wrong or not. He's a fucking oppressor. Send the motherfucker to prison. So they have a completely different view. Now, they want the burden of proof reversed, so he has to prove he didn't do it. They want the burden of proof on the woman to be reduced to next to nothing, and the burden of proof on the man, the accused, to be increased substantially. And this, that they claim, quite rightly too, this they claim will result in a lot more convictions. But you could apply that to anything. Why don't I say to one of these lesbians, all right, then you robbed the bank and killed the security guard at the bank? No, I didn't. I wasn't even in the city at the time. It doesn't matter. You have to prove with 1 million witnesses you weren't there. You can't prove with 1 million witnesses. That means you were there. But I don't even own a gun. Can you prove that you never owned a gun? with 5 million witnesses. Can you prove that? You can't. Well, that means you killed a security guard. That means you're guilty. That means you go to prison. You're going down, mother. Yeah, you can do that with anything. You can just increase the burden of proof to a level that the person can't meet, and then say, right, you have no evidence. That's it. You're guilty. So that can be done to anybody, anywhere. So we shouldn't allow this to happen to any aspect of our justice system. The activists hit back and say, women never tell lies. And therefore they have to be believed. And thus the accusation or the allegation that a rape took place must be true. Now, the tight technical nature of an argument, I've looked at some of these recent rape cases in Australia as elsewhere. Again, there's that same driving force. We've got to increase the conviction rate. These stray white males are getting away with it. All these Hitlers are getting away with it, which is, of course, nonsense. But that doesn't matter. Once that wild gleam is in the eye of these activists, they don't give a fuck about the collateral damage and consequences. And if those same conditions and those same methods of legal measurement were applied to them, they'd be horrified. And they'd run around going, oh, my legal rights, the law, oh, well, I had to be protected. They would run around like that. But as long as it's being directed against the hated ideological enemy, then it's fine. It's okay. That's all right. We can do that. They're only Nazis anyway. So this is the state of things at the moment in the Western globalist controlled rape industry. And pretty much all Western governments are going in this direction, some a little bit more aggressively than others. There are very few holdouts. It just shows how the people who are there to protect our laws and protect the sanctity of the laws are really nowhere to be found when these debates or these this is legislative proposals, for example, in Scotland or even here in Australia, when they come up, there's hardly anyone that says, look, this is once we start doing this with the law, then it's a case of we might as well just lock people up on the accusation alone. I mean, why do we need to bother with any legal proceedings? The outcome's been predetermined by a series of measures that are so prejudicial they almost guarantee a certain outcome. Now, in the cases I've seen where she says, I think I was raped, I feel violated. He might have raped me and I'm not sure I gave consent because I had one drink too many. And the technicality of the law says, well, if you had 2 drinks, you can give consent to 2 glasses of wine or whatever. But if you had 3 wines or 2.5 wines, then you can technically argue that you couldn't give consent because you're inebriated. Thus, your consent has no legal validity. Thus, it was rape. That sort of thing. And those are the technicalities they want to use. Now, to send someone to prison over something like that it's incomprehensible. But these are the things that the proposals of this legislation want to do. They're already able to get the black and the brown people, so that's not an issue. The black and the brown men, but it's the middle class white men, but it's the straight white men they want to get and to intimidate and to threaten. None of the rape cases I've looked at in constitute rape, as in any sort of threat. They've all been over. Every one of the convictions I've seen has been over the technicality of consent, and yet they've involved prison terms. I'm looking at one now, and I've mentioned this one previously. She was texting him with lurid requests for intimate acts. I want you to come over now and fuck me harder than you've ever fucked me before, and these sort of things. I mean, these are very explicit. This is hardly a shrinking violet here, and yet by the use of various technicalities that, she was. It was a week before her 17th birthday, so really it was kind of, or little things like, she admits to having a drink beforehand. Did you check with her how much she'd had to drink, and did you measure the quantity of alcohol and the percentage of alcohol relative to the volume quantity of the liquid consumed? Did you do that? You didn't. You see, then that's right. Yeah. So these sort of things. I mean, that guy got I think it was. I think he got. He served about 18 months or something. But he got a prison sentence for that. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. So increasingly, we're seeing that we've got an activist group of taxpayer-funded activist groups of radical feminist women, because they're the ones that flock to this sort of stuff, and they want. They're the ones who encourage girls on a basis of technical rape. They're the ones that encourage these girls to go forward with it, give them all sorts of emotional support and help, and it's things like this. I mean, the girl may decide, well, I don't want to travel halfway across town during working hours. My job, they'll dock me my pay if I go over and do that. So no, that doesn't matter. We'll come to you. Oh, okay, then all right. Well, I still don't want to take time on. It doesn't matter. We'll do it after you finish work. So these are the lengths that these, a normal person would say, I can't be bothered to go through, which gives you an idea of just how important the rape was to them, or whether there was a rape or anything like that. I don't want to have to go across town and spend the whole day talking about this or hours talking about it. We'll come to you. I don't want to do it in working hours. We'll come after work. And even to the point where, they'll meet them somewhere and buy them a dinner or a lunch or something, this sort of. So there's a lot of inducements. It's made very, very easy for them. They don't have to go out of their way. Whereas someone who had to go out of their way would measure the whole thing, balance the whole thing, and say, well, this is how outraged I feel about this rape. The violence, the knives, the guns, the but I'm not prepared to put this time and effort into doing something about it. It's a big commitment in time and effort, and it really wasn't that big a deal. I just think he's an asshole. I want to get back at him, so I'm just let's forget about it. But instead they make it very, very easy. They're encouraged, handheld. They get cooing noises. Oh, you poor dear, you're so oppressed, so oppressed. Did you know that 99.9% of all women are raped and men get away with it? That's why these men get away with it. You've got to go and pursue this to show those men that you go girl. And these sort of encouragements are used to get the thing to court. And then activists, district attorneys and prosecutors who are also themselves, flocking to this industry, and it's an industry. But it gives you an idea as to what's going on, and we really have to push back against this. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.